After the events of chapter 236 in Jujutsu Kaisen, it's pretty clear that Akutami loves making his protagonist suffer to no end. Itadori wants to die a meaningful death, to not only have his life end with impact, but also to be surrounded by people who care for him, unlike his grandfather. And starting with his grandpa's passing, everyone who's been close to Yuji has been ripped away from him, and he's been unable to protect anyone. He was unable to save Junpei, both Nanami and Nobara suffered brutally in Shibuya, and Todo was injured so badly he was forced to leave the battlefield, all while Yuji lives with a burden knowing that the massacre in Shibuya is a result of his deficient strength. And now with Megumi being taken control by Sukuna and Gojo's alleged death, Itadori is basically living his grandpa's worst wishes. Most of his friends are dead, his teachers and role models are gone, and with the way things are progressing, it seems like everyone else is destined to be eliminated. He's following a downward spiral, and Itadori might truly end the series all alone. In Jujutsu Kaisen, there's a theory that Itadori is the one that accidentally cursed all his friends, and he's the reason why they all suffered horrendous fates. Now, curses manifest from the negative emotions of humans, but what we learn with Yuta's tragedy with Rika is that love is the greatest curse of them all. In Nanami's last moments in Shibuya, we come to learn that our words hold great power, as they can transform into curses to those who hear them. Now let's go back to chapter 9 before Yuji allegedly dies, and he shares his sentiments to Megumi regarding his feelings about his friends, highlighting that he won't need to worry about Gojo, and wishing that him and Nobara live long lives. In this way, it's actually possible that his expression of care for his friends in his dying moments was actually the curse. Megumi barely lives as Sukuna's vessel, and Nobara exists in the suspended form of death, and if sustained, they essentially live a twisted version of Yuji's wish. But Itadori's lack of concern for Gojo had the reverse effect, and he ended up dying a brutal and early death. So this guy wanted to know if Itadori is overrated or underrated in the JJK fandom, and from the outside looking in, I'd say he's vastly underrated. Itadori in many ways had the perfect tragic main character treatment similar to Gon from Hunter x Hunter, and yet many will neglect to give him his flowers because he gets overshadowed by other characters in the series. Now Gege intentionally took an ambiguous approach to Itadori's character. He has an incredibly potent power sealed within him, and it will only be outsourced under desperate circumstances, and sometimes that comes to the detriment of those around him. People sideline Itadori because JJK does what other series are scared to do. They actually give screen time to other characters in the series and allow them to shine in the story, while Itadori only faces the darkness. But the truth is, Yuji is meant to drown in tragedy. He's the inversion of the standard shonen optimistic protagonist. He's someone that will die that meaningful death with a smile on his face and bring a better world to those around him. So let's talk about Yuji's greatest physical feats in Jujutsu Kaisen. Yuji is honestly insanely resilient. He withstood a full force punch from Sukuna, which chucked several kilometers away, and got back up like it was nothing but a scratch, and then he pushed through Sukuna's cleave, keeping his body intact. Now Sukuna did chalk it up to having low levels of cursed energy because of Megumi pushing the brakes on him, but it's still impressive nonetheless. Another moment of his superhuman capabilities is continuing to fight against Chozo at peak efficiency, even though he had a hole in his vital organs, which definitely pushes the boundary of anime logic, but the fact that he still high-diff Chozo given the situation is insane. He also can casually use cars like baseball, so that's pretty legendary. But one of his greatest physical feats is during his fight with Megumi Sukuna. After getting delivered a wicked beating, he gets back up standing unfazed, and still has the capacity to go on jumping from building to building, and the destructive force of his jumping power in his legs is powerful enough to completely topple those said buildings.